Welcome to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast, powered by StatRoute.com. And now, here's your host, Ryan Skullroot.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. It is great to be back. We are actually now basically in the full swing of things. Schedules have changed in terms of me and my family to make it easier for me to get multiple episodes in a week. And so these are going to start coming out daily. We're doing one tonight, one tomorrow, one Tuesday and Wednesday. So we're going to pump out a bunch of content, a bunch of podcasts over these next week and a half until the season starts. I believe we're once everyone actually hears this, we'll be 10 days away, I believe. And so the season is coming soon. So I am really looking forward to tonight's episode. We are going to go over some of the main blockbuster news things that have happened over the last for me 24 hours. For those of you who are listening, obviously you guys have already heard this, so you're not going to, at this point you're just trying to get my take of what's going on. So we will talk about two of the major news stories, actually three major news stories that have happened in the last little bit. And then we will kind of finish off with talking about some players that have kind of risen and fallen, guys that are, I guess, trending in a lot of the fantasy discussion groups that I am in, as to who is rising, who's falling, who's becoming a good value, who is losing their value because people are reaching for them. And we're mainly tonight we're going to cover running backs and wide receivers. So that's what we've got going on tonight. Couple announcements. We still have the draft guide up for sale for those of you guys who want it. $5 for the PDF, $10 for the web version that has some extra articles in terms of draft strategy, handcuffing, and that sort of thing. So that's what we've got going on there. What else? Oh, we've got a couple things going on. We are doing a listener league again this year. It will be on the Sleeper app, and so we are, as part of that, we are allowing 4 new listeners this year. We have the returning champion, one of the listeners who won the league last year. We had 3 staff and 1 listener in the playoffs, and the listener was the one who won it. Edgar, congratulations to him. So he is back in this year. We are making room for 4 more listeners to join the league. And so what we would like you to do is, I will put this out on all of our social channels. We would like you to tell us why you should be in the listener league. 4 best responses will be chosen, and you will be notified as to or be sent the link to join the league. And so it will be a 16-team league. We are going deep this year in our listener league. We're going to really stretch not only ourselves as a staff with our knowledge, but also stretch our listeners as well. So we've got that going on. We also have partnered with Play Balto. It is a NFL Pick'em website. We've partnered with them, and they are going to be hosting a Pick'em for us. And we, as far as the Pick'em goes, we are going to be giving away to the champion at the end of the season a signed Marcus Peters jersey. So there will be a winner, something for the winner there. We're still coming up with a trophy or whatever for the listener league. I believe Edgar last year got I want to say signed jersey is what we got him last year. So we have those things going on. We would really love for you guys to join those, interact with us, and so forth. So that's what we've got going on in terms of announcements. So why don't we go ahead and hop into the headlines.
Today's headlines.
All right. Well, as far as the headlines go, obviously the big one is Andrew Luck has decided to retire at age 29. Really a bummer, to be completely honest. This is a bummer. I really like Andrew Luck. I think that he is a phenomenal talent that was spoiled by Ryan Grigson because Grigson was an incompetent GM who would not put an offensive line around Andrew Luck in order to protect him. Because of that, he has suffered multiple injuries. I want to say torn. What I saw the list: torn cartilage in 2 ribs, lacerated kidneys that cause him to pee blood, torn labrum in his shoulder. He's had this calf floating injury thing in his ankle or foot or whatever it is. I would be worn out too, and I would want to take care of my body. And the fact that the Colts have done a solid for Andrew Luck and are going to continue to just give him his guaranteed money, I think is beyond reasonable. And so in terms of what this does for the Colts, I actually wrote an article on this. You can find it on SkullKingFootball.com, kind of the fantasy impact of Andrew Luck's retirement. And some of the guys I talk about, T.Y. Hilton, obviously this is going to bring down Hilton's value a little bit. I think I have him moved from wide receiver 12 down to about wide receiver 18 or 20. Jacoby Brissett is not Andrew Luck. So, Marlon Mack was another guy. I think that with Brissett as the quarterback, because again, he's not Andrew Luck. He doesn't have the arm, the accuracy. It's going to play an effect on the running game, and I think that teams are going to stop the run in order to force Brissett to beat them. So there's that. So I dropped Marlon Mack down a little bit in my rankings. Nyheim Hines, I think, comes up just a little bit. I think that he could be a solid dump-off option for Brissett and have a little more value. He lost a lot of value last year when Marlon Mack came back from injury. So I think that this is something that could bring him up. Eric Ebron, a lot of us already had him set for a regression in statistics. His reception to touchdown ratio was like 20%. Unsustainable. Even with Andrew Luck as your quarterback, because there's other options there. So obviously he's going to come down. I'm not one of those guys that believes in statting out, because for me, that is a tiresome process that could mean absolutely nothing. It's a lot of guesswork. Because, in the interview that we did a little while back with Chris Harris of Harris Football, he doesn't do any projections. He, picks guys that, based on stats, or not on stats, but based on whether he thinks they're good or not and what he thinks they can do. So, in terms of, my quote-unquote projections, I look at what Eric Ebron did last year, and I think that those numbers are coming down. So I have moved him down. He is out of the top 10 in terms of tight end rankings for me. Jack Doyle actually moved up into my top 10, and I switched Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle. And the reason for that is Brissett has a good rapport, I believe, with Jack Doyle. In the year that, in 2017, 2 years ago, when Brissett had to play the entire season for Andrew Luck, Jack Doyle finished with 80 catches, 690 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Now, again, the touchdowns weren't up, but again, that offense was struggling a little bit because, again, it was Brissett and not Andrew Luck. And so, again, Doyle's kind of that dump-off guy. Now, a lot of this depends on if Doyle's healthy. If Doyle can be healthy and in the lineup, I think that he does better this season than Eric Ebron. Again, that's just, my personal thought on it. So, and then Jacoby Brissett, obviously he becomes a fantasy option in terms of a guy to use. I think he's more of a streaming option. I have him around, quarterback number 27 right now. A lot of what he can do, I think, would be based on the defenses that he plays against. Now, here's the thing. This is just for me, the QB 27 is a very temporary thing because this is a different position that this team is in than in 2017. They have a better offensive line. They have a better running game in Marlon Mack, and they have more weapons to use. And so I think that helps. And they have a better defense to be able to stop other teams so that they're not forced to just huck the ball all the time. So because of that, I think that Jacoby Brissett could very well move into the top 20, possibly top 15. I think that he has that ability, and with Frank Reich as a coach, I think that he could do very, very well. So those are kind of my thoughts on Andrew Luck and what's going on there. If you want more on this, you can again go to SkullKingFootball.com and you can see my article, the fantasy impact from Andrew Luck's retirement. So that's it for story number 1. Let's move on. Story number 2. And the thing that basically got buried yesterday because of the fact that Andrew Luck retired is that Lamar Miller is most likely going to be missing all of 2019 with a torn ACL. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion with torn ACL. He's not coming back in the next 5-6 months. And so the effects of this, they were already thin at running back. In terms of just experience, because they had released Donta Foreman, who was then signed by the Colts and who has now been released on an injury settlement. So they got Duke Johnson to be kind of that running back 2. Well, now at this point, he's kind of the running back 1. Now, I'm not expecting Duke Johnson to just all of a sudden become a main guy. He wasn't that at Miami. He was never that, playing in college. He wasn't that even in Cleveland. When in his first couple years when he was really playing well, I want to say in his first 4 years he led all running backs in terms of receptions. Was a top 15 running back in PPR. I want to say in 2017. And so I think that Duke Johnson will get more of a role. He's going to get more rushes. But one of the main things they like about him is the fact that he can protect, Watson as a pass blocker, behind that disgustingly porous offensive line. Damaria Crockett and Karan Higdon, both undrafted guys that they brought in, both have shown a decent amount of run ability. Again, with all this, I wasn't expecting either one of them to really have much of an effect. Now that Miller is most likely out for the season, I'm going to have to dig into which one of those guys I think could be a better option. You've also got possible additions. Melvin Gordon's still out there. Everyone's rumoring that he's going to be a trade candidate to them, and that he was even a rumor before Lamar Miller was out. And so, you've got that possibility right now. It still doesn't look like the Chargers are going to trade Melvin Gordon. And then during the Sunday Night Football game, the preseason game, the Titans and Steelers, I believe that Al Michaels, there was a thing that Al Michaels said that Jay Ajayi had been signed by the Texans. That has not been confirmed. John McClain, I love that name. John McClain, who is considered the main beat writer for the Houston Texans, has not confirmed that. He said that is not actually confirmed. There's nothing solid about that. So in terms of Jay Ajayi, I'm not really happy about that. I don't think that that's going to do much. I would rather the Texans go with Higdon or Crockett, to be completely honest. If you want to learn more about those two, you can go to our NFL draft profiles. Look them up. We actually did, I believe we did pieces on both of them. Crockett out of Missouri and Higdon, I believe, was the running back out of Michigan. So Both could be real solid running backs. I thought that they both could have been drafted. Crockett I thought was going to go undrafted, but both could be solid options. I still think both of them are better than Alfred Blue, who the Texans kept running out there the last couple of years when Miller was injured. So that's kind of where we're at with the Houston Texans. They're still, again, we're still in a waiting game with them to see what's going on. So, we hope that Lamar Miller is able to come back again. He's only 28, I believe, so he should be back next year. So, but Duke Johnson definitely gets a bump. I think I have Duke Johnson moved to about running back 35, maybe bumping him up to running back 30. Again, waiting another week or so to see kind of where we're at right there. So, and kind of our last big story that, while it didn't happen yesterday, it's been the last couple days, but definitely something worth covering. One of the last big stories that's worth covering. Ezekiel Elliott has apparently left Texas and is headed back to Mexico after turning down an offer to become the second highest paid running back in the NFL. The offer, I believe, that is rumored that the Dallas Cowboys gave him, basically put him as the second highest paid, right behind Todd Gurley. Looking at Ezekiel Elliott's Twitter profile, I believe he retweeted a tweet from Joe Thomas, the former offensive lineman of the Cleveland Browns, who on his Twitter account mentioned the fact that when someone is the best in the game and is coming up on a new contract, should be paid, was it 10 to 15% more than the next highest guy, which would mean that he would be getting let's see, I believe Gurley's contract is about 14 million, I want to say, which would basically put Ezekiel Elliott around 15 to 16 million, which I honestly believe is crazy for a running back. And again, Ezekiel Elliott does not have a whole lot of wiggle room, not necessarily wiggle room. Doesn't really have a whole lot of leverage. Sorry, that's what I'm looking for. Does not have the leverage with 2 years left on his contract. Plus, he's had the off-the-field issues. Forget the little thing about the in Vegas, pushing the guy over and the guy trying to blackmail him. But in terms of just other issues off the field, even already having a suspension, that's something that the Cowboys are going to take into account when it comes to re-signing him. And again, he still has 2 years left on his rookie deal. So because of that, the teams are going to want to hold on to him in a capacity or at a monetary level that makes sense for them. So now, okay, real quick, because this is going to come out. This is going to be part of the argument. Well, he's the best, so he should be paid more than anyone else, even if he is on his rookie deal. This is just about the Cowboys or these rich billionaires not paying players what they're worth. The NFL's Players Union, the Players Association, is in charge of negotiating these kinds of contracts with the owners. And they have continually conceded these types of things to the owners. So stop blaming the owners. Blame the Players Association and their unions for not sticking up for their clients better, if that's the angle you want to take on this. That's my thought. So in terms of who this affects, obviously Tony Pollard, being a guy who has played very well this preseason, and a guy that Jerry Jones has, quote unquote, jokingly stated that Zeke who, which really pissed Zeke off. Which at this point I don't care. Tony Pollard has been playing very, very well, and I think that he is a solid pick. I want to say I've seen a couple guys pick him 6th, 7th round right now. For those of you who are wanting to take Zeke, you still have your fantasy draft and you're wanting to take Zeke around that 4, 5, 6 area. If you're going to take Zeke, make sure you get Tony Pollard. Again, I've seen him going round 7. A couple guys taking him around 8. And so if you're going to go after Zeke, make sure you get Tony Pollard. If you're not going to pick Zeke, try to get Tony Pollard. I think that he could be, again, he's putting up solid numbers, and with that offensive line, could be a really good player for your fantasy teams. I think that he could put up solid running back 2 volume, could possibly sneak into that running back 1 volume or running back 1 production, depending on how long Zeke stays out. Plus, he also catches the ball, and I believe they brought in Alfred Morris to the Cowboys. He doesn't catch the ball. He has bricks for hands, so he's not going to be involved in the passing game where Tony Pollard is. And Pollard does a great job of following his blocks and running the ball. So Dak Prescott's definitely going to be affected by this. One, just the contract situation. They're likely to pay Prescott and Amari Cooper first, which is then going to affect the Ezekiel Elliott situation, his contract. So, but in terms of the field, Zeke provides that that attention from a defense to open things up for Dak Prescott, and so for me, I think that's a big thing for Dak, is to have Zeke there. When Zeke isn't there, Dak struggles. So, and again, this goes on to Tony Pollard. If he can provide that kind of production to offset the defense and so cause the defenses to come up and provide a little more space for Dak Prescott to throw, that'll help as well. And then Amari Cooper. One thing about Cooper is that he is still injured, which I can go ahead and bring that up right now. I want to say, where was it? Bring it up right here, that he is dealing with. I want to say it's a calf or foot muscle strain. Muscle strain is what they're calling it. It's foot, ankle, calf, somewhere in that general region. And so this Ezekiel Elliott thing is going to affect Amari Cooper's contract. It very well could be that they sign Dak and Amari, and then just still leave Ezekiel Elliott. If Tony Pollard keeps playing well, they're not going to care about signing Ezekiel Elliott right away. So this could affect Cooper if Cooper can come back and get healthy, which in turn actually provides a better option for Dak Prescott as well. So that's kind of our 3 main stories that we were dealing with. There's just a couple other things that I wanted to get into. Sterling Shepard is good to go for week 1. So for those of you who may have drafted him kind of to be a bench spot right now, possibly a flex play, he is good to go. We'll see kind of how that works. Kind of a sleeper type player, Dare Ogunbowale is getting a lot of first-team snaps with Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones in the 3rd preseason game for the Buccaneers. Says that he's basically the best pass catcher, best pass catching running back on the roster right now. And if you think about Bruce Arians, he likes running backs that can catch the ball in the backfield. He loved David Johnson and throwing to him. For those of you who actually watched it, was the All or Nothing that was about the Cardinals. They actually were going to draft Amir Abdullah, and then he got drafted, and then they ended up going with David Johnson. So he likes that pass-catching ability, and so Ogunbowale is definitely a guy to look at deep in the drafts, or if you've already drafted, have him on your watch list for these next couple of weeks to kind of see how that goes. Kyle Shanahan wants Dante Pettis to earn a role. Apparently he is not yet and has been struggling. Josh Gordon dressed in full pads for practice today. Indication is being removed from the non-NFL or the NFL's non-injury list or whatever it is. He is looking like he is going to be coming back and ready to play. I am still not drafting him. I am waiting on all that. So that's just me. He could be a wide receiver 1. definitely a wide receiver 2. I'm just still not sure whether or not Josh Gordon will be able to stay. Whether he stays off the substances, I hope he does. It's also a matter of, can he stay mentally healthy? Which he has admitted that he is dealing with mental health issues along with the substance abuse. And maybe that's, they're going hand in hand. Is that something I'm willing to take a risk on we'll cover that. I want to say he's going in like the 7th or 8th round right now. So something to think about. I'm not going to deal with that. So Arizona Cardinals signed wide receiver Michael Crabtree to a 1-year deal. This happens just after they put Hakeem Butler on IR. And another story that came up that says that, where is it? Anyways, that Andy Isabella is basically still a work in progress. And so they're wanting a little more veteran leadership there in terms of their offense. Dolphins are apparently shopping Kenny Stills. Longtime Jets reporter Rich Kamini suggests that Ty Montgomery and Le'Veon Bell will share the load early in the season while Bell works on shaking off the rust and establishing timing with the New York Jets offensive line. If you remember last year when Bell was holding out, he was only averaging like 3.5 yards per carry the first like 3 or 4 games. And so I can see them using Ty Montgomery a bit and splitting that load. So if you've got a late pick, I know that Ty Montgomery for the most part is going undrafted. Could be a solid PPR pick, late round stash kind of a guy to kind of see how things go in the beginning of the season. And so I think that, again, I think he's definitely a guy looking at, especially in like 12 to 14, 16 team drafts, definitely got to pick up late. So Keenan Allen expects to be fully healthy and ready for week 1. And I think that was pretty much. Oh, and then Cam Newton has a midfoot sprain in his left foot. Cautiously optimistic that he'll be ready for week 1. And Darwin Thompson, another guy that, behind Damian Williams in Kansas City, a lot of people are hyping up, think that he could take over the role. Damian Williams has been playing very, very well, and so I think Damian Williams has to get injured for Darwin Thompson to take over the role. And if he does, Thompson's going to be a great stash. I've seen him go as early as the 7th and 8th rounds in 12-team leagues. So, and that's it for tonight. So we're just going to call that good on the news and notes. So, what I wanted to get into a little bit tonight is just kind of look at some of the names that have been trending in terms of running backs and wide receivers and where their ADP is currently and where they're going. So, start off, a lot of people have been talking about Nick Chubb and going through the is Nick Chubb really worth the first round pick? And I don't know how many times I have to say this. Yes, Nick Chubb is worth the first round pick. Here's the deal. Nick Chubb has the backfield all to himself for the first 8 games. That's through week 9 because they have the bye week in week 7. Then Kareem Hunt comes back from suspension, having not been with the team for 9 weeks. Comes back week 10. Having not been with the team for 9 weeks, not allowed to attend meetings, not allowed to be at practices. He can be at the facility doing his own workouts, but he cannot be involved with the team. So after all that, everyone seems to think that Kareem Hunt's just going to jump right back in and take over the backfield, or take enough meaningful snaps away from Nick Chubb that Chubb loses his value. And if you think about it, Nick Chubb was a beast last year who also caught the ball out of the backfield pretty well. I think he finished with 20 catches. And again, he didn't have the starting job until week 7. I was right around week 7. And so Nick Chubb is a stud and can get the job done. And even if Hunt comes back, I don't think it's going to be to take away a whole bunch. It'll be more the Duke Johnson role. And Duke Johnson wasn't hardly used in the offense last year. So Nick Chubb, over the last week, basically gone from the end of the first. He's still at the end of the first round. In the last month, he's gone from being a mid to late second round pick in 12-team half PPR to right now he's going pick 9 in a ADP, pick 9 in the first round. Totally worth it. I would take Nick Chubb in the first round, and I'm a guy that drafts wide receivers. So Damian Williams. He's actually dropped off a little bit. I think some of the Darwin Thompson news and everyone being high on Darwin Thompson has dropped his ADP down a little bit. With what I saw from Damian Williams and some of the practices and some of the tape, I think that he'll be fine. Really, I think all that Williams really has to worry about is injury. So Williams is actually going the back of the second round now, 212. When a month ago he was going middle of the second round. So he hasn't really dropped off that much. So Chris Carson, a month ago, 411, now is going in the middle of the fifth round, or in the middle of the third round. So he's jumped around and a half in ADP. A lot of this comes off the heels of Penny struggling a little bit in the first couple of preseason games. Them talking about they want to get Chris Carson about 50 targets this year. They want him more involved in the pass game. As long as Carson stays healthy, in the games that he stayed healthy, Carson was a running back 1. I want to say he was in 12-team leagues, he was running back 10 or 11. So he is, you can get a running back 1 in the third round. I think people are so worried about how much volume Penny's going to take away. Mike Davis's, carries are gone, about 180 some carries, I want to say. Maybe it's less than that. Most likely is less than that. Just, hedging my bets there. So I think that Penny takes a lot of those carries, but I don't think that it's going to be enough to really affect Carson's volume. Carson's going to get a little more volume. So David Montgomery, where he's gone, he's another guy that a lot of people are talking about. He's gone from the beginning of the fourth round, 4-3 to end of the third. So, if you can get him mid to late third round, I'm fine with that. I don't think mid third round is much of a reach, honestly, for David Montgomery. He's going to get the volume. Again, Mike Davis is there, but Mike Davis, I really think, was a backup plan just in case they couldn't get Montgomery, the guy that they wanted. They traded up to get Montgomery in the draft. And I think that he really will be the Kareem Hunt for Nagy this year. While Tariq Cohen, the thing came out about Tariq Cohen, really they think they overused him last year. I think he becomes more that Tyreek Hill type and will be more of the pass catcher, maybe even line up in the slot a little bit in the Bears offense. Another guy, Austin Eckler. With all the Gordon news, Austin Eckler has gone from the middle end of 8th round, so 8-8. He is now going first pick of the 6th round. I think that really that's a great value because, again, we don't know how long Gordon's going to hold out. I think that Eckler last year was still top 35 running back in PPR. Definitely a guy that, has value. And if you can get something like that where he's a flex play in the 6th round, awesome. With how much volume he's probably going to get in the first few weeks, definitely worth that 6th round pick. So, and the other guy, Duke Johnson, obviously when he was traded, he went from a 14th round pick in a couple of days to an 11th round pick. Now he's already jumped up to an 8th round pick. Now again, I think that he may be worth taking the middle 7th round right now. That's where I would be willing to take him. Again, I just am not sure about this Texans offense. And, again, he gets involved in the pass game, and I think that he could take some volume away from Kiki Kuti, who can't even stay healthy himself. So I think that he's a guy that could possibly, kind of fill that sort of role there. Duke Johnson, obviously, he's going to get volume in this offense because right now he is the best running back they have. Until they sign someone else or until they trade for someone else, that's where they're at right now. So that's for the for the running backs. For the wide receivers, guys that are kind of moving around. Amari Cooper has dropped off a little bit. He was end of the third, so 3.9. He's dropped down to 3.12. Basically, this is injury. Not sure if he's going to be ready for week 1. I don't like Amari Cooper this early. I don't like him in the third round. I've talked about this in a couple different places. The Sports Exchange internet radio program that I am the fantasy expert for, or fantasy analyst for. Cooper, to me, is the wide receiver version of Derrick Henry. He really had 4 good games last year. Those only 4 games where he had more than 60, 70 yards last season. Just happened, 2 were with the Raiders, 2 were with the Cowboys. I want to say those 4 games were 60% of his production. I'm just not sure how much of an effect he is going to have in this offense, and whether or not he can really be that true number 1 on a regular basis. So another guy, kind of going up and down, or going up. Chris Godwin going beginning of the 5th, 5.1. Is going mid-4th, 408 right now, in 12-man half PPR. He is worth that 4th-round pick. I think that he's easily a wide receiver 2. He is going to get volume. People, I've seen in a couple of chat rooms, what's all the hype about for Chris Godwin? Is he is he that good? Yes. He's a very, very good talent. He's a very talented player. We loved him in 2017 here at SkullKing Football coming out of Penn State. He's a guy that I really like. If you go back into our archives last year from the beginning of last season, on our podcast and our waiver wire pickups, the first 8 weeks, I want to say he was on there 7 times. We love him. We think that he's very productive, and in a Bruce Arians offense that throws a lot with so many targets that have been vacated from Deshaun Jackson going to Philadelphia and Adam Humphries going to Tennessee, there is going to be room for both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to eat, especially, and O.J. Howard. So just with the amount of targets vacated, there's going to be a lot of volume there for him, and I definitely think that he can perform with that volume. A.J. Green, the last month with his injury, has gone from a 3rd-round pick. He is now a mid-5th-round pick. I want to say I've got a buddy, a draft, or in a league that I used to be in. I want to say he actually was undrafted still in like the 9th or 10th round. Just because, he's still in a walking boot as of today for me, recording this Sunday night. So still in a walking boot. They don't even think he's going to be ready for week 1 yet. So still has a little scooter that he's riding around on. So A.J. Green is falling. I'm just avoiding A.J. Green, to be completely honest. We talked about Josh Gordon. August 5th, he was a 14th round pick. He is now going end of the 6th round. Again, he's very talented, and I think that he could be very, very good. It's just, are you willing to take on the risk of a guy who very well might not make it through the season? Very well could leave the team due to mental health issues week 3. I hope that's not the case. I would love to see Josh Gordon play the entire season. I'm just not going to draft him and deal with that on my fantasy team. I want a little more security. I'm willing to risk on players. That one I'm not quite ready to pull the trigger on. So, T.Y. Hilton hasn't dropped a whole lot yet. Hilton was again 2 weeks ago was a 3rd round pick. Beginning of the 3rd round. He is already dropping down to end of the 3rd. I think, again, I talked about in my rankings, I've dropped him from wide receiver 12 down to about wide receiver 18. I still think that he could possibly have a decent amount of volume. I just don't know. So with Jacoby Brissett, I think that he could do well. Again, 2 years ago with Brissett, he had his worst year since his rookie season. Under 1,000 yards, under 60 catches. I think that Brissett is definitely better this year than he was 2 years ago. I think that he can be better than he was 2 years ago. I'm having a hard time. I think it's a little more boom or bust than it has been in the past for T.Y. Hilton. The last guy, D.D. Westbrook, a lot of hype coming out of Jacksonville for him. Marquise Lee, they don't even think is going to be ready for week 1. They've got a lot of players that they're just not sure about, a lot of wide receivers. It's like a carousel. Westbrook has been the only one that has been solidly talked about. And so he has gone, again, in the last month from a 10th round pick. He is now going middle end of the 7th round, 7.08 in a 12-man half PPR. So I like him there. I would like to see him maybe go more towards the 8th round. That's where I would like to pick him up, is maybe beginning to maybe the 8th. That's where I would be a little more comfortable taking D.D. Westbrook. If you can get him there, awesome. I don't necessarily want to take him in the 7th. I would rather have him in the 8th. So that's those are kind of the movers and shakers that have had the most movement in the last couple weeks. So that is it for tonight. In the next couple episodes, I'm going to cover the guys I am absolutely avoiding. The guys, my guys, the guys that I want on my fantasy teams this year. And so that's where we're at. And then we'll kind of figure something else out for our last one. Maybe do one more mock draft this week. So that is it for tonight's episode. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. Again, my name is Ryan Skullroot, and we will definitely talk to you guys later. Hey, SkullKing Nation. Thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.